So, welcome everyone, ladies. I am so excited and I have very good reasons for it. And of course, the number one reason why I'm so excited is because look who's with us. He is the relationship guru. He is world renowned. In 2001, he started his relationship coaching practice, and he has been hailed as the relationship guru by every coach, every expert out there. Mr. Grant has been in the industry for so many years, and he's been a mentor to me that I'm so lucky to have. I turn to him for advice on difficult client cases, and he's always very generous with sharing his expertise with me. And today I decided to bring him to talk about a very important topic, I believe, for my clients and for every woman who is watching this, is how to build emotional attraction and intimacy with men. So we're going to be talking about this on today's webinar. For most of you know me, but for those of you who don't, my name is Sami Wunder, and I am a leading relationship expert for ambitious, successful women who want to find the solution to create lasting love, a love that lasts and a love that feels good. And in the last 3.5 years, I have seen over 140 of my clients find their happily ever afters. So I'm very confident that what we're going to be teaching you here is going to make a difference in your life. And let's just dive right in. By the way, feel free to ask your questions and feel free to, say your comments. We're going to be taking a look at the live chat every now and then to make sure that this is resonating. So, Mr. Grant, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks, Sammy. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited about this and what we have coming up for everybody. So I'm looking forward to diving in with you.
Absolutely. So we want to save the best cookie for the last, but I also already want to whet your appetite by letting you all know that Mr. Grant is flying me all the way to Atlanta, Georgia this October, and we're going to be doing a live luxury event. So you're going to be our guests at the Ritz-Carlton, and we have a very special early bird offer that we're going to be giving to the first 10 lucky women who sign up in the next 3 days for this event. So you definitely want to hear the replay all the way to the end and listen to the amazing offer that we have for you. But for now, let's just dive straight into emotional attraction. Now, Mr. Grant, the way I teach this to my clients is that a romantic relationship with a man must have two elements in it. So the first element is the element of physical attraction. And the second element is the element of emotional attraction. Now, I believe, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, I believe that no man will ever pursue a woman or ask her out or go on a date with her if there was no physical attraction. If he did not feel attracted to a woman physically, he will not waste his time on a woman this way. And yet, so many women find that men, of course, they ask women out and they go on that first date. But for a lot of my clients, what we find is that the date doesn't convert to a second date or a third date for a lot of the women. And of course, we're only talking about men they like. So, women go out on dates with men they like, they think they had a great date, and the guy doesn't ask them out again. So that's a phenomena that happens. And the second thing that happens very often is that, things fizzle out at the 3-month mark. So either men ghost, which is very painful, very hurtful, very sad. I always feel the pain of my clients when a man ghosts, or simply says that I'm not feeling it for you, or, this is not going the way I would like it to go at the 3-month mark, so I don't think we're on the same page, etc., etc. And that is where the second element comes, which is what I call emotional attraction, right? So there's the physical attraction, which almost always exists for men when they ask women out. You can assume it. But it's the emotional attraction that is so hard to develop for so many of my clients. And they experience the pain of, relationships fizzling out and men fizzling out on them. So what do you have to say to that? The physical attraction element and the emotional attraction element.
From a man's standpoint, physical attraction it's not so much a yes or no type thing as much as, when we did the Woman Men Adore years ago, one of the main emphasis is that as a woman, you're designed, created, however you want to say it, in such a way that you're naturally appealing to men. And I don't mean that fixes everything, but just, the story I tell a lot is I did this in the airport one time. I was bored waiting on a flight, and I noticed, I forget, some woman was walking down, and just out of curiosity, I kind of looked around. Every man was looking at her, but not just her. They were looking at all these different women. And it really is, women are just naturally appealing to us. And so when you say there's an attraction there, at least on the first date, there's enough attraction. There's some folks that are just going to be his type, whatever that is, but that's overrated. It's just, as a woman, if he's asking you out, I couldn't agree with you more. That's enough of a starting point. And that isn't so much, what does a woman need to do? I'm assuming she knows the things of what colors do you look best in, but also what do you feel good in? So that's the emotional thing is like a layer, is what I think of. Is that when you add it on top of, and it's not just 1 + 1 = 2, 1 + 1, those two things can be 12, 15, and it can just exponentially grow when they're there together. So I love that idea. And I do think they come in that order, like you're talking about, is that it is that initial, men are visual. And when they see that with a woman enough to take a risk with it, if there's a first date, there's a very good chance there can be another one. There's weird exceptions, because I get to hear a lot of these weird exceptions with men that have been so injured. There's an underlying hatred of women, but that's really a minority. And our goal, especially with this today, is to help you kind of weed those men out. But no, I like that foundation you're talking about as a start with.
Okay, awesome. So we are in agreement that 2 elements are needed. Of course, this is a simplistic explanation, but it really helps my clients, helps our tribe to think in a structured manner. So physical attraction is there. And I tell my clients, just because you're a girl, you're appealing to men. So when I enter a room, I never have to ask myself, so what do I have to say? What do I have to do to catch a man's eye? I just catch men's eye because of being a girl. There is nothing more that is needed there. It's nature, it's biology, it's evolution. So this is really important that women understand that for every weight, shape, size, no matter what we look like, no matter what our hair color, our eye color, just by being a woman, we are gold to a man. Yeah, and that is one, yes.
Yeah, and that women, I don't think women realize men are not as harsh with women as women are with themselves. Every woman's got a story of a guy that was just heinous and just mean, but men in general don't look at women harshly. I hear clients, the way they talk themselves, and I said, imagine if you talk to your friends that way, or if you talk to your daughter that way, or if you said that to your niece or someone and they just cringe. I said, well, that's what you're doing. I said, and men don't think of you that way. So when they go in the room, they don't notice, whatever your most insecure feature is, they don't look at that. In fact, as you're saying this, I remember something I saw. I was thinking about when I was single, and there was a woman, and I noticed her from a distance, and I remember thinking, oh, she's pretty. But then all of a sudden she looked in the mirror and she was doing her hair and all that, and I didn't know anything was wrong with her hair. I didn't know anything was wrong with her makeup. I had no idea her dress was out of place, but apparently all of that was true by her body language.
Yeah.
And then when she was done, I didn't really notice a difference. Maybe she did. But I could see it just, oh my God, I'm sure when she walked in there, it's, oh, my hair's a mess and stuff. And men do not look at that kind of detail. You're right. Just the fact that it's a woman, that is appealing of itself because it sort of fits a place in our heart. So yeah, I would not only echo that, but I hear that a lot from my clients as well.
That's so true. I remember sharing this story with you in a brief conversation I had with you where I posted something on Facebook where I decided to sing. And it was the first time I decided to sing on a Facebook story. And then I looked at it later and I felt completely horrified. I was like, oh my God, you're singing in front of thousands of people and what must they think? And you look like a fool. And, maybe you should delete it. And then I showed it to Chris and my husband, and he was like, I said, what do you think of it? And he's like, what do I think of what? I said, the singing. He's like, that's fine, but you really look hot. And so it was such a great reminder
Mhm.
of, how uncomplicated men are and how we complicate our lives by telling ourselves that we're not attractive, we're not good enough. But without getting deeper into the physical attraction aspect, because emotional attraction is what we want to talk about, we want every amazing woman who's watching this or listening to it on replay later to know that she is enough. She's just enough by virtue of being a woman. She's already in the game by being a woman, and that's all that is needed at the start, which is the physical attraction element. And now we get into the emotional attraction element because it addresses the pain points that I mentioned at the start of this webinar, which is that, yes, men are physically attracted to some women, and yet they ghost on these women. They take them out for 3 months, and then these women never hear from them again. So this is where emotional attraction becomes what I call the gluing element of a relationship, right? Because we can almost always assume physical attraction. If you're seeing a guy, he's attracted to you. But it's the emotional attraction element that often doesn't develop. Mm-hmm. And this is what we want to talk about. So, Bob, I'm more than happy to give my definitions, but I would love to hear it from your mouth. What do you think is a man is emotional attraction? When do you experience it?
So emotional attraction for men, the tough thing is if you ask them, they're not going to be able to put it in words. So I'm going to use words that they might say differently. But since we don't feel a lot, I mean, and when men feel, we tend to feel stuff intensely. We tend to feel it overwhelmingly, which makes us cautious with feelings, because once emotions get out, we tend to feel like we can't rein them back in. So when a woman comes along and she stirs up our emotions, and that's just mainly just with her emotions, it's like part of us awakens inside. It's like when you've had a good night's sleep. It's not the best analogy, or you have a dessert or something. It's not like cocaine necessarily. It's not that kind of crazy, but it's like part of you waking up and you realize, oh, this is how it could be. And it's not something you put your finger on. It's just when you're around her, and this is the phrase I've told women, I've had more men I know say this, and they'll say there's something about her. And, when pressed, sometimes men will say, what do you mean? Is her eyes, or she's pretty? And the guy just stumbles. He says, he said, I don't know. He said, you just have to be around her. And every man I know can tell you about a woman like that, or several in his life, where you saw her. Some maybe there was a stronger physical attraction to begin with, but just what you said about it building emotional attraction, it takes time, not necessarily a long time, but it really has to kind of grow. It has to be nurtured a little bit. I mean, it will grow. A lot of times I find if women, not to be harsh, but if they don't get in the way. So I think women are great emotional connectors. I just think women are wired that way, unless there's things either they're doing or perhaps the guy, but it does sort of build it. For a man, it feels like something that once you experience it, that's what he comes back for. And then that emotional attraction highlights the physical. So when your husband's saying that about you, I haven't talked to him, but I can read his mind. It's that in that moment, that emotional connection does make you look hotter, does make you look more appealing. And men don't know how to separate that. Once they've had that, it's sort of a loop that goes back and forth. And as you have that, see, that's the stuff on long term where when you get married or you've been with someone for a while, he doesn't notice pick the insecurity, extra few pounds, or oh my goodness, my hair doesn't look great this morning, or I had a bad mood last night, because that loop is in place, and really the emotional part just reinforces everything else and makes it better. And so it's like something awakening inside of us. And then once it's awakened, we don't ever want to lose it. And the other thing is, in a man's life, a man can only experience this with a few number of women. We don't have the capacity that women do, that women could do it with multiple men, not they want to, but men do not do well with breakups. So this emotional thing, it feels like part of us that was lost, that's come back to life. I mean, not to overdo it, but it really feels that strong.
Oh, thank you. And I remember the time when I was single, I had this feeling of bitterness towards men that, they don't want to experience deep commitment. They don't want to commit. They don't want to lock themselves down. Or, I would use arguments like they just want to sleep with as many women as possible. They're wired biologically for it. So why would a man want to commit to one woman for the rest of his life? And then, of course, when I started doing the work I do today with my clients, this was one of the first beliefs I replaced, because I like to call it a limiting belief. And my husband has said to me in a very vulnerable moment that, we're not God and we don't know where this goes. Of course, we want to be together for the rest of our life. But I can tell you that if this doesn't last, I will never marry again, because you are the love of my life. And I remember just crying about it because it was so touching and it was so honest and so genuine that, the way I've invested with you and the way I have loved you, I will never be able to love again this way. And this is sacred. So I just wanted to share this story because I think a lot of women think that men are just out to get sex and men are just out to, experience fast affairs, flings, non-committal relationships. But it's really up to us to draw that out of a man. So let me talk about emotional attraction in the way I like to explain it. It's when a man feels something in your presence and it is activated by you being in touch with how you feel. So this is a lot of the times, I loved what you said about women blocking emotional attraction. And the way we block emotional attraction from developing is often that we cut out our access to our own emotions. So we become very head-oriented and we're very logical and rational and, linear, A to B, B to C. This is how it should look. This is how it should work. And then we forget to be present in the moment. We forget to have fun. We forget to relax. We forget to let him know, I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling exhausted. We forget to access our own emotions in the presence of men. And that is one of the most powerful creators of emotional attraction, you being able to feel yourself in front of a man. So I would love for the ladies who are watching to take away from today's webinar 4 tangible things that they can do in order to build deeper emotional attraction with men. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the first 2 elements. Then we're going to tell the ladies a little bit about Atlanta for those lucky few who are going to grab a seat, because we don't have many seats for this event. And then we are going to talk about 2 more elements. So should we start with the first element, Bob? How can women create deeper emotional attraction within men? And while we're talking, ladies, this is a wonderful time for you to let us know in the comments if this is resonating, if you have a question about what we've said. Both Bob and I are going to look at the comments. We're going to look at the chat. So we know you're probably really focused, listening and watching right now, but if you have a pressing question that we can support you with, we'd love to be able to do that. So just write in the chat and write in the comments and we'll get back to you. So Bob, should we start with the first element that women can use to build emotional attraction?
So let's start with the idea of pacing. And what I mean by pacing is it doesn't feel organic. Let's start with that. And that's one of the, not battles is a little strong, but that's one of the gentle discussions that I almost inevitably have with the client, especially when she meets someone wonderful. It just feels wonderful, and she hasn't felt wonderful in quite a while, and she's been thinking so much, and now her feelings are just exposed, and I don't ever want to put those back in the bottle, so I just want to do and feel what comes naturally. And I don't cringe as much as I used to because I have an idea of how to respond to her, but I know it's going to happen. If she does that, it goes too fast. Yeah. So the pacing part is that I don't let him get to have access to me, if I'm a woman, as much as he would like.
Yeah.
Now for women, but I want to spend all his time with him. I know you do. I said, but for him, he can't invest through intensity. Women can, but men are not good at that. There's a limit to how much intensity, and then we have to cool down. And the more intense it gets, early on, I'm leery because of the crash I fear is coming. So the pacing is it won't feel as natural, but I've seen men, I've had clients. There's one man in particular I remember, and there was a woman he was dating, and she was doing this with him, and it was driving him crazy. And he would come in, he liked her, and when they were together, she was on, and she was lovely, and then all of a sudden he'd call her up, and he'd text her, and she took her time responding to him, and after about 3 weeks, he finally said, He says, I've had it. He goes, is this one of your clients? And I said, I'll never tell. And she wasn't, but I saw how much it just made him want to go out with her more. And he would get frustrated at times, but he needed that, whether she knew that or not. So the pacing part helps him choose to him. Every time he reaches out, that's like a micro commitment. It just, everything. We want a bunch of little ones for a man. And that helps him choose you again and again and again. And his choosing is how he bonds. I mean, the emotional part, yes. The intensity, lovely. But the choosing part is how we take it just beyond that first date, early on thing toward having him. It's not so much getting him, drawing him in, as much as you become appealing because he feels like, I have to pursue you. Men value what they invest in. And that's anything. That's money, cars. You can be the dumbest thing, but if they're invested in it, they're going to fall in love with it. And this is how we help him. Because see, I want him, and we do, for him to invest in you. And I'm talking guy language. I know that men thing, but that's when men invest in, they love their children, anything like that. And so that's why I think the story you talk about with Chris is so good, because I get what he's saying is I have invested everything in you. Where else would I go? It's what you did and all, but I get when a man has that opportunity, I don't want to go anyplace else. And so that pacing thing, I'll give you two folks real quick that did this. Charlton Heston, famous American actor, and Teddy Roosevelt, American president. And I was reading stuff in history, and their wives, when they were dating, and these were two go-getters. They just made stuff happen like yesterday. But they ended up marrying women, and they didn't know each other, but their wives paced them. And you read in their journals, and it drove them crazy because they're used to making stuff happen. But both of them said, ironically, as they were married, there was not a day in their life that they were not grateful for their wife, that they did not adore her. And they attributed the pacing part to the big component of it. So I'm a huge advocate of pacing, not just because you should, because of how it helps him. And it begins to set the tone for him adoring you.
I think that is so powerful. And I think I want to emphasize the part around it feels counterintuitive. Mm-hmm. Because every time, you meet a man you like or you get asked out, of course, your first instinct is, wow, that's now it's going to happen. Now maybe he's the one, he's so good looking, he's so smart, and he's doing everything right. He's calling me, he's texting me. And so we can get excited and we can flow with the intensity. And that itself is dangerous. This flowing, because it feels natural, right? When you like someone, it feels like the most natural thing to just go with the flow and just, meet him thrice a week, start sleeping at his place, say yes to a quick exclusivity, have sex on day 3. It's feeling so good. But
go with it.
But honestly, that is, how do I describe it? It's like, when things move too fast, and because men are not so good at feeling and they flow with the intensity, then at some point what happens is that he suddenly realizes, oh my God, I've been spending so much time with this woman. I have been telling her she's the most amazing thing on this planet. I have even been sleeping with her, and she drives to me every week and, sometimes even helps me cook dinner. Like, this is getting real, and I need to, get out of this. Otherwise, this is a true commitment. So it's almost like, they suddenly they realize, what they've been getting themselves into, and then they're the ones to put the brakes. But if we are the ones to pace men, if we can pace men out, then we're the ones putting the brakes. Can you see how the power equation changes? And then he's the one who is coming after us to sort of convince us that he's worth being dated, or he's worth being with. So I think it just pacing completely changes the power equation, which is so critical with men. And it helps men feel like they're in the control seat. They are choosing us. They are in the driving seat, which is, I believe, very powerful for men to experience.
It also contributes to that I feel lucky to have gotten her. And that's a big deal with men. We need to feel lucky. The opposite side of that is taken for granted. And,
Yeah.
for women, everyone watching, that's my worst fear for you. Sammy and I, we've talked about this off camera before, is being taken for granted. I'd rather him be mad at you than take you for granted. I mean, I don't like that. I'd rather, a host of other things, but taken for granted scares me, because what's next after that is either he leaves or you have to double it down on being accommodating and give more and sleep with him more. And it's endless. It's not a value exchange. It's not that you're precious. It's not that you're someone we're pursuing. It's you're convenient. And we don't ever want to let a man view you as convenient. And I've had buddies in the past I've fussed at because they were taking advantage of women and they're not buddies anymore.
Yeah.
I've had guys that do better. So we're not minimizing the man's role in this. I mean, it's men are intelligent, yet I just hate to leave it up to a man, not because they're stupid or dumb. It's men tend to do the minimal amount required. That's not a put down, but if a woman's convenient, men are like, okay, great. And that's not good for them or you. So I want to echo that part, Sammy, that it's so many ways I have found pacing doesn't solve every problem, but it solves a lot of problems. Conversely, not pacing opens the door for a lot of problems early on in the relationship. And it can, get to the ghosting thing.
And I mean, before we finish with the pacing element, I just want to say that a lot of the times men will disappear, ladies, but these are the wrong men. So sometimes a man who is in his wounded masculine, he just wants things fast, everything on his terms, wants it easy, wants it, like the way he wants it. That kind of man is going to really show himself. You'll be able to see it so clearly when you pace him, when you say, I can meet you Saturday. Okay, how come you can't meet me on Tuesday? Well, I just said I could meet you on Saturday. Oh, but tomorrow works for me. Can you make it happen? And then you already start to feel the pushing, the lack of respect for your boundaries, maybe he gets angry on you, maybe he dumps like blame on you, gets really insecure around you. So for me, pacing is so powerful because it really helps you see what a man is made of. Like if someone throws a little boy tantrum on me because I'm not free when he wants me to be free, that speaks a lot about who he is, right? So I think it really, as Bob likes to say, magnifies what's inside of a man. When you take it easy, you take it slow as a woman. So very important to pace, ladies. Really don't rush into exclusivity. Don't rush into quick relationships because you're going for the big soulmate love. And that love takes time to develop. It doesn't, like any man who says, I love you on date number 2 or 3, observe, watch. It's not healthy. And that's why pacing is so important. I could never imagine my husband saying, I love you on date number 3 or anything, like he did not love me at date number 3. He was still testing the waters. And that is true for any emotionally mature man. So Bob, let's get to element number 2 of emotional attraction.
Well, for you, I like the way you describe this. This is I believe I had down the energy bubble. And I thought that was a really interesting concept. So I haven't thought about describing it this way. So I'd like to hear from you as far as how you describe this with women, because I found it kind of fascinating the way you talked about it.
Awesome. So the number 2 Wunder Diva way of creating emotional attraction inside the heart of a man is by simply giving him space and leaning back. Okay, so I like to explain this in the concept of an energy bubble where, when you can imagine that there is a pink bubble, which is your relationship or your energetic exchange with a man. Okay, and there's only so much space in this bubble, so it's not ever expanding, it's limited in space. And there's him and there's you. Yeah, now the energetic exchange says that this is you leaning back in your feminine energy. And this is not you doing anything. This is you just being, which is the core quality of feminine energy. Because a lot of women think they have to do something to get a man or to, strike an emotional connection with a man. Even that is often interpreted when we are in our masculine, it's often interpreted as, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do to make it happen? Now, connection, doesn't happen by doing, it happens by being. So when you're in this bubble and you lean back, you're not doing anything, you're just being. But what you're also doing without doing anything is that you're creating a space between him and you. Yeah. Now, there is an energetic gap. We call it an energetic gap. And when masculine men feel that energetic gap with a woman, it is in their instinct to try and close this gap. Okay, so without really doing much, if you just lean back and be, you are creating magic already. You are creating magic already. And that magic is created by that space that you give him to make the choice to choose you every single time, as we just spoke about with Bob, which is this micro commitment of asking you out, micro commitment of checking in on you, micro commitment of booking a holiday with you. So just the sheer act of giving a man the space and being in your being energy, which is feminine energy, is already creating that pull, that emotional attraction, that pull, energetic pull for a man, for him to come to you and choose you. What do you think about it, Bob?
You know, yours is, I think, because I've told women about creating a void. I like the way you do that a little better, the details involved, because that void or that empty space, that's the woman. When I talk to women, it's, you know, the guy you're not interested in, that's what you do. You pull back, you don't try, you certainly don't try, you don't want to encourage. And that's part of the reason he finds you so appealing. So when I ask women, and it's not always easy, I said, imagine if you treated every guy, every man like those that you're not interested in. You know, you're not mean, you're not ugly, but you lean back, mainly you lean back because you don't want him pursuing you, you don't want, and that's the paradox, is that in doing so, your guard goes down. And when it goes down, he feels your energy. He feels that part of you. And you're right, with women, I think women naturally glow. So a lot of times
if we're not blocking it.
What?
If we're not blocking it.
Yeah, if we're not blocking, I think women, when I see women at their best, one of the things I've noticed is, and I would see this with clients after a while, is they're not thinking as much. I mean, it's not that their intelligence goes down, but they don't have all these thoughts in their head. They're just in the moment. Yeah. And they can radiate in jeans and a comfortable shirt to a party dress. I mean, and you can see it when they walk in the room. And I could always tell when a woman had this leaning back and creating space, is that when I saw this for clients after a while, I would go, new haircut, I couldn't tell what it was. I was scrambling for what is it I'm seeing, until after a while I realized, oh, they're doing it. Okay. And I have to learn not to look for the thing, because it just felt like you could feel it as soon as they walked in the room, and they weren't trying. I mean, if anything, they weren't thinking at all. And when I have clients that do this well, they'll say, how did I do that? Where's the button? I need a button so I can repeat this. I want to. And it's not that. It's the byproduct when a woman does this, is that when you do that and create that space, it takes some faith to do it. I'll be the first to admit. It takes a little courage, because the fear is, what I hear from women is, if I do that, then he'll leave me alone. If I'll do that, he won't be interested, which is to your point. If he's not interested when you lean back, that tells me a lot about the man. That tells me about him, because now we're getting into fragile. And the examples you gave, I've done it in the past back when I was single, and I remember getting nervous and trying to press someone down. I've had buddies that would do this, and we'd say, don't do it. They did it anyway. And we're like, God, you got to just, and that space actually helps that masculine side of him come out. And you want to see this now. See, if we don't want them leaving at some point at all, we want to find out about his emotional capacity now. We're not making really incredible tests here. We're not making it we have to fill out a resume. But how he responds, to this emotional bubble is a huge indicator as far as what he's going to do in the future. You don't have to interview him. This ends up being like an unofficial interview, but it's a spark. And we want to see how he responds to that spark, because the man that, Sami's talking about, that from what y'all tell me that you want, this is intoxicating to him. It's a whiff, it's a sniff that you just can't help but lean toward the woman. So I think it's magical when women do this.
And it's so funny, because I think a lot of the times women because I work with very successful women and they're always looking for things to do, things to do. What can I do? What can I do? So it can create this emptiness. This being in our feminine can often feel like we're doing nothing. Mm-hmm. Right? So every once in a while, I'll have a client who will message me every week. This is not working. What can I do? And I'm like, you don't have to do anything. You have to be. And that's a hard concept for so many women to grasp. And I can really relate. I can really understand because I work with women who have developed a lot of their masculine side. So it's like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? So I just want to say that even when you are energetically leaning back and creating space in the bubble, you still get to be magnetic. You still get to do glow. You still get to dress amazing. You still get to laugh full-heartedly. You still get to dance at the party and, you know, let him watch you. So it's just about not closing that gap. Mm-hmm. He has to be the one closing that gap. But while you're still there, you can still be amazing. You can still do amazing for you, because that really ramps up your attraction factor. That really ramps up your glow factor. So I know my husband told me, like, he was watching me at the university graduation party and he was like, wow, like I couldn't get my eyes off this girl who was dancing with so much confidence. And I wasn't doing it to impress him. You know, I was doing me. That's the key, you know, doing me is the key. And then understanding that he will close the gap. When he's the right man, he will close the gap. Bob, is it a good time to take some questions? Because I can see them all coming in. Okay, awesome. So Lauren asks, can you lean back, staying with him for a week? We're married, rekindling after a few years apart.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely you can. In fact, I think the fact that you're married gives you even more leverage, because you leaning back with marriage, since he sees you so often, he'll notice this quicker. And I think what the fun things with it is, and since our resident married woman here, I'll ask her opinion also, is that when you do this within a marriage, is that he'll feel the difference more so. But if you can keep it like a game, see, one of the worst things I find sometimes is women will do this and then they'll want to point it out like this. And if he doesn't notice, you know, that she have to say something, and she doesn't give it time. Remember, emotional stuff for men, and especially husbands, you know, since we get caught up in so many things, is it takes it time for us to go from our emotions to our brain. We just, men have a lag, whereas women, I think, can do it fairly quickly. It takes us a little while to process, to feel what's going on. And he's not necessarily going to connect the dots. Oh, she's leaning back. It's not, we don't think like that. It's what starts to happen is that he'll feel, it'll come as a wave usually. It won't happen all at once, but it'll just be this wave initially of attraction, of just something. He'll look at her and all of a sudden he'll remember, this is why I married her. And it'll be fleeting and it goes away. And then one will come later. So you want to do it for a long enough time to let those waves sort of build, because it's not like it happens once, it just sticks. So it goes, comes and goes away, goes and comes away. And then, but then they start to come quicker and quicker. So absolute marriage is, ideally marriage is the best place to do it. And then you work your way backwards, but yes, wholeheartedly. Now to the resident married woman, your experience is?
Well, my experience is that every time I don't lean back, I fall flat on my face. Nothing works except leaning back. Mm-hmm. Especially the more masculine the man, the more he knows who he is and what he wants, the more he feels lack of attraction when you jump in and fix, or jump in and do, and you do it not with the energy of love and freedom, but you do it with the energy of agenda and trying to get his attention or trying to get something from him. So is marriage the place to lean back? Absolutely. I like to tell my clients that what we're teaching you here is a lifestyle. It's not something that you do today and stop doing tomorrow. It's not something you do till you get the engagement ring and then stop doing it. It's a lifestyle. It's a healthy way of being in a romantic equation with a man. So the energy bubble is also valid within marriage, because my husband doesn't want me to be his mother. My husband doesn't want me to be his coach, his therapist, his fixer. He's not perfect, but I am not the place for those things to be resolved. I am the place he comes to for solace, for love, for connection. And that is completely different than playing the role of the doer in the relationship. So for lovely Lauren, who is saying, can I lean back in the marriage? We've been apart. Not only can you lean back, we highly recommend leaning back and creating space, because in the energetic bubble, that's going to give him the pull he needs to come towards you. And it's so subtle. So let me give a quick example. When my husband comes home from work, I don't go and run to him and give him a hug and say, welcome back. Welcome back home. I sit on my couch and I drink my tea. And he comes in and he looks around the house. Where is she today? And he finds me and he gives me a kiss. Okay, so that's an example of being and retaining that space so that a man can move towards you. And honestly, every time I lean forward, and of course, I'm a human being, I need to listen to my own lectures every once in a while. It's interesting how in the energetic exchange, when I do this, he does this. And of course, as an expert, I'm able to be very quickly very aware of what's happening. And as a woman, there is this space I feel with him that I want to fill. But I realize the space has been created because I have been leaning forward. And so I just lean back even more. So that gives him even more space to recover and come back. So that's the energetic bubble. This is our stance, single or in a relationship. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. We have another question from so many amazing questions. Jennifer says, I'm a successful businesswoman and have spent my career interacting with men in the business environment. Never once have I been asked out. How do I become more approachable without being inappropriate in a business environment? I think that's a great question. Bob, would you like to say something?
Sure. So, granted, at work, it's different. At work, we're all masculine in that sense. And yet, work can also be a great place to practice, but we'd like to practice this sort of as a whole person. So it's one of the things I've found with women is that women have an amazing ability to switch hats. Men, not so much. So I had one of my bosses years ago, and she was great at this. When she was there at the office, she was take charge, but when she walked out the door, it was like she took off a garment. And when she went home, and she told us one time, she says, you all wouldn't recognize me at home. How soft I talk, and she was married to an alpha man, and she could be alpha. I liked her, but she could be alpha. And part of this is that developing this part of you or allowing it to happen is at least what I've seen with clients, is it starts to bleed into your work setting. So it's not like at work, let's just be feminine all the time. You can't, because you have to get stuff done. But once you leave work, can we start practicing this then? Can we start experimenting? Can we have some fun with it? Once you leave work, literally you view it as just a transition, that once that door closes, you get in your car, is that you practice leaning back right then. I've done this with clients. And in that moment, and just practice that so they get an idea of what it feels like. And so they can distinguish the difference, because that's really what we're after, is knowing when am I in feminine, when am I in masculine. And in the course of that, I find is then you can put them on or take them off as the situation arises. And I know when Sami and I were talking, for years, I would tell women about putting your heart first and getting in touch with this. But Sami's been really good about being able to distinguish between, yes, there are times, when your masculine energy is quite appropriate. We don't want someone to get rid of that, or especially if someone's accomplished and talented. That's great. We don't want you to lose that or put that on the shelf. We just don't want folks to over rely on that. And that's what I find a lot of times is whatever someone's good at, especially a woman's good at, they tend to overuse that gift. And if they're good at thinking, they'll overuse thinking. Nothing wrong with thinking, but they overdo it. If they're take charge, they'll overdo that. And so we just don't want to get stuck in that. And so I like the idea of practicing at the very least outside of your work setting, and then see if that doesn't bleed over. So Sami, what was your experience? Because you actually went through this transition.
Yes, absolutely. So I'd like to say that I don't find anything wrong with women also practicing their feminine energy at work. I think this is about, like we said, it's about awareness of what hat am I wearing at which point. And we want this to feel like a choice, not an autopilot. So I think a woman has won the game if she's able to say, now I'm going to be in my masculine because I need to get stuff done. And now stuff is done. I'm surrounded by accomplished, handsome men. I'm going to put this off and I'm going to relax and I'm going to be and I'm going to smile. So I think the victory happens when we are able to choose which energy we want to be in the moment, because your masculine is also amazing. It's what helps you put food on the table, pay your bills. So we don't want you to lose connection with that energy. We just want you to be able to switch it off. So how can you do that? How you say, how can I be more approachable? Now, honestly, Bob and I could talk about this endlessly because there are so many tools and, tips and tricks we can give you. And I definitely believe this is going to be one of the topics we take up in Atlanta because it's just so relevant. Like, it is just so important that men are able to approach us, because if they feel like they can't, then nothing develops, right? So I think it's a very big topic, but one quick tool that I can already give you is, I, in the beginning of this work, started to wear a pearl bracelet as a reminder that now it's time to switch off. So any kind of, symbolic charm that you can use that reminds you that now it's time to switch off. Now it's time to be. Now it's time to stop doing. Now it's time to relax, give up, surrender, whatever that looks like. It's a very powerful connection that is made in your brain when you do that. You do that ritual for like 5 days. And then every time you put it on, you're like, okay, now I can, be in my feminine. So that's one quick tip you can do. Another quick thing you can do is, I call it, in my Leap into Love program, I've spoken about the open heart window tool. Okay, so what is the open heart window tool? A lot of the times when we are not looking approachable to men, it's because we've got our guard up. And this is a way to imagine that the window on your heart is locked. Like, nobody can come inside. Nobody can see through you. Nobody can feel the essence of your soul. And so what we do is, at the count of 1, 2, 3, we open that window. So you can literally imagine, you can do this tool while standing, after having given a presentation, been in your masculine. Now it's time to 1, 2, 3, open the heart window. And imagine when it opens with a gush, you have this light of love radiating from it. It can be a pink light. It can be a soft golden light. It's this light. It's that uplifting energy that is there within you, that is inside of you, this radiance that is there inside of you, but that is blocked behind this closed window. And so you can literally, metaphorically open the energetic window of the heart. Imagine this love light radiating. And I know this personally because I have used this every time I feel like my energy is really blocked, or, I'm feeling all up in my head. It really helps me relax and radiate this light of love. And my husband feels the difference pretty much instantaneously. He can see I'm smiling more, I'm somehow softer, more relaxed. So you can try the open your heart window tool. So I hope that helps. Okay, so Bob, I think it's about time to give the ladies an introduction into what is awaiting them in Atlanta, Georgia this October. It's the Feminine Energy Magic Live Weekend, and you're flying me all the way from Germany to be there with you together live. So we're very, very excited. Bob, what inspired you to create this event?
For years, I've had clients. Some have said, please come to London. Some would say, come to my city. And I'd never wanted to do it on my own. And then as I met you and saw that you have done some of these, I always wanted someone to do this with that was actually living the stuff that I've been sharing with women for years. And we created the Woman Men Adore years ago. It really was to give women a picture. These are the things. This is what it is that men find that they're just irresistible. And it was counterintuitive when it came out. I had professional women that would go, this is ridiculous. But then they try it and they go, oh my gosh, this works. I'm like, yes, it does. And because I'd seen this with clients for years. This was after doing years with clients and finding out what works. All the testing was already done. But we wanted to do this with an event where, instead of, someone taking 6 months or so, and that's okay if someone wants to go at that pace, but this was more of a weekend. I wanted to take sort of the best of what you did and add a little flavor to it. So that's why I wanted you to come with us. And this is where not only we want to, spend a weekend of luxury, and we picked the Ritz-Carlton. I went here in Atlanta and I drove around to the different hotels. I mean, I know what the brands are. I went inside, met with them, and the Ritz-Carlton, frankly, was the best. I mean, they were beyond hospitable. They were excited when I told them what we were doing. And so we've got that reserved for everyone. It is a fabulous place. And because I know what you had said is that, Bob, if we're going to do this, it must be luxurious. It must be the best. And so I spent, about a month driving around different places and looking. And this was the one here in Atlanta. And I love this city. I think you'll have a great time here, because we're also going to put in here, some of the key questions that women have been asking as to what makes the biggest impact, what gets inside a man's heart, what is it that stirs things up. Not just, let's give this a try and see if it works. These are the things that actually work. And why I like having Sami is that it helps me to say, and here's someone that's doing it. But don't take my word for it. I can't bring in 1,000 clients that I've talked to, but Sami's here, and she's sort of the condensed version of all these clients. And not only that, but you mentioned the energy bubble. On Saturday night, sort of our big thing is that I've got an event scheduled with the ladies, and it's going to be involving men. And we're going to show you, as far as it's going to be an experiential thing where you get to experience this energy bubble. So I won't go into any more details because I want part of it to be a surprise, but it'll be something that you've never, had anyone do before. And it's going to be something that'll stick with you the rest of your life, because we really want this to be, after you've come, is that we want this to have an impact on your life. I mean, I'm all for seminars. That's great. Love doing webinars. We're doing one now. But the real pride in this, like Sami said, she's got 140 women that have been engaged. I've done this longer than her, so I've stopped counting. I don't know how many, but I'll just go Sami's 140. So we've got 140 plus. But that's the fun thing, is getting those emails, those wedding invitations, getting those back when someone, or back when I would see folks in person, they would come in, they'd start crying because I know what they went through, and it finally had happened for them. And so this is about getting a jump start on that, but to do it in an environment that makes it safe to feel. So we have the luxury massages we've got in place because we want to stimulate everything, your mind, body, spirit, all of that, because that's when a woman's at her best, when her thinking and feeling are working simultaneously. And we want to kind of encapsulate that in this weekend so you get this experience. We didn't want this to be just where we just sat and talked the whole time. We've all done that, but to actually experience something as well. So I have been getting more excited as the time comes along. I have been planning for this for months. All the details we're putting in place. Sami was the final detail about getting her committed to this to fly in. So nothing was left to chance, only the best. And I mean that sincerely. If I wasn't going to do it with Sami, honestly, I don't know that I would want to do it with someone else and try to kind of make it work. It was either going to be fantastic or I had other things to do beside this. So this is, we've made it so it's easy for folks to come in. It's just a weekend. It's something that in anyone's schedule should be easy to do. And our promise is for you to leave with something that'll not only stay with you, but that'll be impactful for you as soon as you leave and on to the coming weeks and months with men.
Well, the ladies are saying that they're really excited that Bob is bringing Sami to the US. Well, thank you, Bob. And I am personally very excited as well because I think I have done retreats in the past, but what is amazing about this is short and impactful. So I know that a lot of my clients find it hard to take off an entire week of vacation. So they can literally fly in on Friday afternoon, the 25th of October, and leave Sunday evening, 27th of October. And that's something that is doable and fittable, if there's a word like that, fittable in every woman's schedule. The busy woman can make this happen. So I'm really excited. Also, the reason why I'm excited is because Bob, I think your clients love hearing from a woman's perspective. And honestly, my clients love hearing from a man's perspective because they've heard me say, lean back, lean back, lean back, and they're kind of sick of it. But when you say lean back, it registers. It really registers. You know, he's confirming this. He confirms that it's magical to do it. And I think it's the same for your clients, that, you know, they get a diva perspective and they get like to see and feel what it feels like to feel powerful around men, because that's the experience. Like, honestly, I want to say this with as much humility as possible, but I can't remember the last time I felt insecure around a man. Irrespective of what he was making, how good he looked, none of those things counted somehow, right? Unless he gave me attention, he couldn't turn me on. Like, my diva is so on, and my diva is so much in sync with how valuable I am and how much, you know, how precious my heart is. Just like I tell my clients, their heart is worth millions and millions. It's precious. You know, I can't remember the last time I felt insecure around a man. And I think that is a powerful energy for women to feel, to be, and to experience, because I know it's possible. I know it's possible for them. You know, I'm not a supermodel. I am not like, you know, I've got my few extra pounds here and a few extra pounds there. And yet, if I can feel this way, I just want to inspire women that, you know, they can feel this way too around men. So I think what's so special about the Atlanta event is they get me, but they get you as well. And it's two of us coming together, and we've never done anything like this before. So we have planned this weekend, your, you know, luxury accommodation, your breakfast, your lunch, everything is at the Ritz-Carlton. So you will be treated like a queen the moment you enter. And it's, I think, one of the most loving and powerful gifts you can gift to yourself. What we promise and what we are trying to create for you, and we will create for you, is an experience that you will remember for the rest of your life. This is not something like a webinar that you listen to and then, you know, forget about it, go do your stuff. This is really going to be impactful, and it's important to both me and Bob that when you leave, you feel like you've got it. You feel like you've got this. This is the energy, this is the experience. So Bob, what is the early bird that we are offering the women? Because I know we have a special offer for those who sign up in the next 3 days.
You know, because for us, it was such a big deal to make that impact you're talking about. So for the next 3 days, if you sign up now, that helps us with the Ritz-Carlton. They want to have an idea of how many and when. So that's some of this is at their, you know, direction, is that we'll spend a special VIP one-on-one session, either with me or Sami, depends on the time of day, is that we'll sort of get an idea from you. This helps us, especially for your experience, come to Atlanta, to make sure there might be something unique or special about you. But we'll sort of find out about your situation and what you've been through, because we don't want to tell you something that you've already tried. I mean, we don't want to do that, but we want to find out about you. So between now and Thursday, thing is, we're going to have this section, and once you sign up, one of our assistants, Missy or Sandra, will be in touch with you to set that up, and we'll get together with you one-on-one prior to the event, and we're going to take notes and find out details about you so that we can get a head start. You know, if you want to, you know, get a jump start on this, that's what this is about. You don't have to wait till October. I mean, because in October we'll just build upon it, but we can get a head start with you. We're going to limit that to 10. So as much as we love to everyone, we're going to limit it to 10, then we'll have some cutoff or something. We'll be nice about it, but we'll have some cutoff with it, and that'll give us an idea. So if that's you and that's something you want to do, we'd love to have it. Sami or I, either one, will be speaking with you and taking notes and really crafting something unique for you. And that's the fun thing for me, is when we start to personalize things. And that's what this is about.
Absolutely. I think it's important that women understand that we're not taking 50, 100, 200 women for this, but there are a limited number of seats, and this is going to be intimate, because it's really important for us that we speak to you, that we speak to your challenges, and we give you a plan that is custom made for you. So this is really important to emphasize, because it's not going to be a room full of 100, 200, 1,000 women. That's not what we're doing. It's an exclusive weekend. And we'd love to be able to help many of you, but we've actually found that focusing on an intimate group gets much higher level of results for our clients. And that's why, as much as we love you, there are only a few seats. And of course, as Bob said, it really helps us with the Ritz-Carlton because they would love to, know who's coming. That if you sign up in the next 3 days, you not only get a $500 discount on the standard investment, you also get a private breakthrough session with both Bob and me. The standard investment for the luxury weekend with your 6 hours of live support from Bob Grant, the relationship guru, and myself as well. 6 hours of live time with us, your breakfast, your deluxe superior twin accommodation, your lunch, your snacks, your drinks, all of that is part of the experience, and it's $4,000 standard investment. But if you sign up during the early bird, which you will find on the sales page that our team has kindly left in the video title above, you get it for 3,500 USD, so you get a 500 off, and you get a bonus private session. It's a relationship assessment session, so we really want to get to know you. We want to get to see what you've tried, what your struggles are, and based on that, we'd like to make a custom plan for you. So ladies, we're really excited. We really hope that you understand the value of this opportunity that is knocking at your door right now, and it's asking you to step up for yourself, because this is not an event like any other. You will not be sitting among hundreds of people. You will be given exclusive attention, and this is going to speak to you and make that huge difference in your life, because both Bob and I are marriage oriented. We want our clients to, get to that A to Z process. And that's what this is about. This is the A to Z of soulmate attraction. And that's why we're so excited to present it to you. So everyone, make sure you check out the link, sign up in the next 3 days. Don't overthink this. If this is calling your heart, I can only encourage you to follow your intuition. And Bob, as we promised the ladies, we have 2 more elements that we have to give them.
All right, so let's do element number 3. And this is, and some of these you'll find some overlap with. And this is one of the ones, it's my favorite, but I always have to sell this because how it starts out with. And this is the gift of tension. So I have a phrase I tell my clients. I say, in dating, tension is your friend. Tension is defined as, I'm going to put that as is where there's uncertainty about your level of commitment to him. Tension doesn't feel fun. What tension does, tension makes him think about you. Tension makes him question. Tension makes him a little nervous. Tension makes him feel. And for a man, please don't go out and try to make him angry, but I would rather a man be angry. I'd rather him feel than be indifferent. Remember, indifferent is the thing that scares me. Indifferent is when you're convenient and you can overdo that. The analogy I use is I was cooking when I was starting out and I got the recipe for cookies and it said 2 cups of sugar. So I thought, 2 cups? 4 cups should be even sweeter, right? I put 4 cups in. The stuff came out like syrup. It was horrible. And I learned there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. And that's a problem with being accommodating. Tension is where you don't close that gap. When Sami was talking about, the energy bubble, when you lean back, that creates the tension. And in the course of that, in creating the tension is, the tendency is it feels uncomfortable. And so therefore I want to do something because it doesn't feel good. I haven't talked to him. I want to reassure him. And I say, don't do it. Don't do that. That tension is where I want him to wonder. I want him to be thinking, what's she doing? And see, we haven't done this one, but quick, when Sami talks about rotational dating, we've adopted that. I do stuff and she borrows and I borrow hers and it gets kind of mishmashed together. But rotational dating, I am a huge fan of. And the core of that is you date around until someone pick a standard, but we're like until they get engaged. And when Sami first told me this, I was thinking, do you have clients that actually do this?
Yes.
And she laughed and she says, well, only the ones that want to get married. And she said it so matter of fact. It wasn't even diva. It was just so, and I just was stunned at that because I thought none of them would ever listen. Well, it took me a while to come around, but that's the essence of it. What it does is that we want him to feel, if you don't get up off your rear end, someone else is going to snatch you up. And women, a lot of times what they tell me is they want to tell him that. I'm like, don't tell him. It's not something you tell. You don't talk about this. You don't threaten. You don't help him with that. I know the tendency is to do it. How will he know? This gets into trusting men. Men are not as clueless as you think, or as you might think. What we're good at is we notice stuff. We just don't let on about it. we don't say it, we don't verbalize stuff, but we pick up on a lot more than you realize.
Yeah.
When we don't notice stuff, it's not because we don't get it, it's because we don't want to. And that's when I think Sami was talking with her husband, when she point stuff out, or she would, I'm going to share this with you, said, I hope it's okay, it's live, but she would sometimes would say something about what he was eating like this. And I'm laughing because, I mean, my wife's done it. I have kids that are older. I have to cut that off with my kids because they're older. I don't have to do it as much with them, but I get the wanting to help out. And so the tension part is by allowing that space and allowing it to be paced. When you feel that tension, it works for you because that makes him uncertain. And when women say it's a game, I've gotten to the point, my response is, I don't care. I don't care if it's a game. I know it is extremely valuable, because if you do tension killers, if you feel nervous and you send that reassuring thing, you get rid of the tension, but you get a little bit of a blah taste. You'll get vanilla. You've killed his enthusiasm. You've closed the gap. You haven't created that void that Sami's talking about, that emotional bubble, and that's critical early on. So if we know this ahead of time, that tension is your friend. If you're feeling it, I'm not saying you're going to like it. That's where a girlfriend's handy, or someone, or Sami or me, or someone that's handy to remind us, nope, this is how it's supposed to feel. You want this. And so tension, when we're talking about ghosting, I can almost guarantee you when someone's ghosted is that there's not been enough tension. So this is not being blamey as much as, but from an element standpoint, tension is missing. And when I hear clients with this, I'm going back and kind of doing the details and listening of how she helped out and, you know, how he did this. So Sami, that's my word for attention. How do you describe this with your folks?
I think it's the courage to frustrate a man.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. That's because that's exactly what it feels like to him.
Yeah. So, you know, it's, yeah, I do, like, I'm not going to be available when you want me to be available. I'm not going to respond to a text the minute you send me the text. If I see your call and I'm having fun with my friends, I'm not going to pick up your call. Now, if you get whiny like a little boy about it, too bad, right? So for me, it's the courage to frustrate men and to be able to handle their anger or intensity and not get daunted by it. So to give a quick example, I remember when I was dating Chris and I was also seeing this other banker guy. I was really rotational dating. It's not rotational sleeping. It's just seeing different men and keeping your options open. I remember I was on a date with this other guy and Chris sent me a text and it was a yes or no answer, but I was like, oh, you can wait till you have my full attention. And then the next day he said, hey, you never got back, you know, where were you? And I didn't feel like answering that. I didn't feel like giving him an explanation of who I'm spending my time with. And then I didn't reply to that question. And I could feel like the day after when we met, there was this restless feeling inside of him. And he brought up the relationship conversation and he said, where is this going? Are you seeing someone else? Like, would you like to be my girlfriend? So I could see, like, he's not stupid. You know, when I refuse to talk about something like that, of course he gets irritated. Of course it frustrates him. Of course he also his man ego doesn't like the fact that I am seeing someone else. But it's also what propels the relationship forward. It's because I never got afraid of it. I said, like, okay, you know what? You're not going to tell, no man gets to dictate to me what I should do with my life or who I should see or who I shouldn't see. And for me, what was most important was that I felt good in the presence of men. So if a man started to blame me, shame me, make me feel bad about my choices, made me feel like a bad person for seeing someone else, even though he himself has not offered me anything substantial, I don't think I want to stick around such a man. So I think it's just the courage to do what serves you. And that will frustrate men, but that will also make them come after you. That's my version of tension.
You know, and as you're saying that, something to mention also is tension is one of the probably the main ways that a man will think about you. When there's tension, you're on his mind. And that doesn't mean we can control what, but he's thinking about you. It may be irritated, but we want that. Some women, he doesn't think about me. I said, well, were tensions involved, like what you're talking about? Oh, he's flustered and all that, and he's irritated, but it quick. What this also does is it reveal a man. Tension is one of the best things that reveal a man's character, because we want to know, especially long term, what's he going to treat you like when you're sick? What's he going to do when you have a bad day, or when you say the wrong stuff? And we don't want to make it where you never make a mistake, or you never lose your temper, or you never. If that's the case, you're going to have to walk on eggshells. We want it to where good days, bad days. And I love how vulnerable you are, Sammy, when you talk about, my supermodel, because I have women that shy away from, I don't want to ever share an insecurity. I don't even want to admit it. I go, well, he's going to see it. And he's going to look at your insecurities pretty much the same degree you do. And that doesn't mean you don't have them, because we all have something we don't like, but it's just about, this is who I am. And that tension is a way of modeling that for him. And it helps him realize that this also makes you safe. Because as a woman, if you can't create tension with me, how can I possibly trust you when I'm scared? Because it feels like you're weak. Accommodating to men is nice short term, but I don't value you. And I certainly can't trust you with my insecurity. And the things I like when you share about with Chris, Sammy, about when Chris will share stuff, I know why he does stuff. I think I've talked to Chris a couple times on Skype, but I know why he would do these things when you're saying it's because you've made it safe for him. And the safety is not, let me put my arms around you, big guy. The safety is that I can take care of myself if need be. And that is so refreshing for a man. That's not a turnoff. That's that, wow, she can pace me if need be. It's just, and that's what makes you not only more appealing, but that helps a man trust you, because men are very careful about who we give their heart to. We're just, we're cautious about that. We don't even like opening up ourselves. And so part of us is dying to do that. So tension, initially, it may feel counterintuitive. It may feel this is no fun, but this opens the doors of his heart open faster than just about anything.
Oh, Bob, I can't tell you how amazing I think what you just said is. I think this element of tension, being able to create emotional safety is powerful. And I can just see how my husband feels emotionally safe with me, not only because I'm not, most of the times, not judgmental and critical, because I think that is one of the fastest ways to kill attraction, but I think he feels emotionally safe with me because he knows that I have the power to take care of myself. I have the power to be independent in a healthy way. Not in a way that if he wants to do something for me, I will stop him from doing it, but in the way that I don't need him to breathe. And I think for men, they can sense if a woman is needy, clingy, or will get weak in a way that he will have to, bear the burden of her not being able to handle her own emotions. I think that can really create a sense of insecurity within men. And then they will stop to, they will not want to bond with you or connect with you, because if you can't handle your own emotions and you can't handle your own neediness, your own clinginess, your own insecurities, then how on earth are you going to be able to handle his, right? So this power to be brave and stand by yourself actually makes him feel like when he's going to have a bad day, he's going to get hard, he's going to, how do I say this? He's going to feel all kinds of difficult emotions. You are going to be able to be that safe container that can deal with it, that can see it and not judge it.
This is when he acts like a pill. I tell women, maybe an American slogan, but it's just when he's acting pouting, when he's acting, moody or whatever, having a bad day. It's just because as a man, that gives me the freedom. Oh, I can do that. And if I go too far, she can set a limit, or she can, then I don't have to worry about, oh my goodness, I'm going to crush her, or oh my goodness, she's going to fall apart. And it's not, in fairness to women, it's not that you always have to be self-contained. It's not that. It's that you can do it if need be.
Yeah.
Is that if it's necessary, you can. And that's freeing to him, and that's a partnership. And that's the thing that men don't find anywhere else. You don't find this at work. You don't find this with your buddies. You don't find this in sports, making money. You don't find this anyplace else, not even with your children. There's one place you're going to find that. That's going to be with your wife. Right? And I mean, it can start before then, but that's ultimately what you're after, someone that you can count on this for a lifetime. And that's what men are really longing for. They don't say it that way.
Yeah.
They don't start. So we're saying it for you, but that's the prize for them. Is that's the I finally found her. What that means is what we're talking about in this part.
It's so funny because I know when Chris gets moody and pouty and sulky, like, I'm around the door if you need to talk. And then I just leave and I watch my Gossip Girl because I'm not going to engage with that poutiness and that sulkiness. So like, I don't feel the burden to fix it. Why? Because I get pouty and I get moody as well. And I don't expect him to fix me. Like, I understand this is part of life and part of relationships, and I can deal with my moodiness, and I can deal with my neediness, and I can deal with my own poutiness. And so it gives him the freedom to see that, you know, he can be that way and I will not fix him. It's safe to be that way in our home. I will just leave. And whenever he's ready, he can come back. You know, it's a soft, warm invitation, but I'm not going to fix anything. And it's so funny because I know that makes him feel safe to be himself, to be imperfect, because no hero doesn't take off his armor. You know, every hero takes off his armor, and every hero sits down and, you know, deals with his fears, has an imperfect day. And I think men want to be able to see that we can handle that. We can handle the imperfection of it. Because I know some of my clients, you know, they'd get really anxious around a man raising a voice. You know, it's not that it is healthy, or it's not that it should, you know, happen every day. But once in a while, you know, because men have a hard time dealing with their anger, you know, it's one of the ways they cope. You know, they raise their voice. Now, if that would happen, you know, you have the power to be able to handle it and go away, disengage, not deal with it, not put up with it. But if you stand there and, you know, you make him wrong, or you go down in the argument path with him, you know, like start arguing and make him wrong and blame him and judge him, then all of it starts to become very unsafe. It becomes an unsafe environment. This is not to say a man should be screaming at a woman. This is simply to say we all have coping mechanisms, you know, and we should be allowed that safety to be imperfect within our relationships. Yeah. Okay. So what is the last element? By the way, we're getting compliments. I just want to read them out to you, Bob. This is so strong and powerful, Sami and Bob. Thank you so much for doing this. Excited that the event is happening. Okay, great. So we're going to take two, three more questions, but we want to finish with the last element of emotional attraction, which is?
This is vulnerability. And so part of the reason I flew Sami, I'm going to fly Sami out to the U.S., is that she models vulnerability very well. There was a post that she did, and it talked about her and her husband, and I still remember it. And she said, "I'm not this, I'm not that, but it doesn't matter because my husband just adores me." And she went to all this, and that post was probably the first thing that really stimulated me to, gosh, I should do more stuff with Sami. We should, because she's living this. So Sami, since I've seen you do it and I've heard you do it, tell us please about vulnerability and how this looks, the relationship early on, how you do it, and then maybe we'll go back and forth from there.
Okay, so I think there are so many ways to describe vulnerability, but it is one of the key elements of emotional attraction and what will make a man, you know, feel with you and feel for you. So I call it various elements. The first one is the ability to be imperfect. I think it's huge. And I think a lot of my successful clients, when they find this diva work and feminine energy work, they try to do it perfect, and they put a lot of pressure on themselves. And what they don't realize is that in trying to do it perfectly, in trying to be perfectly feminine and perfectly articulate in how they talk to men, I think they don't realize, but they become masculine. Right? Because it's about getting from A to B. It's outcome oriented. If I talk like this, if I be like this, I'll get the guy. Right? So I think it's the ability to be imperfect. And this is one of the key things about this work that I teach my clients, that if you do this 60% of the time, you will succeed. You don't have to get it 100% right. If you do it 60% right, you will succeed. So I think it's imperfection, the ability to be imperfect, at this work is number one. And number two, of course, vulnerability is letting a man see you as imperfect. Letting a man see you as imperfect.
Uh-huh.
So, what does that look like? That looks like understanding that if you're going to be with a man for the rest of your life, he's going to see you without makeup when you wake up in the morning. He's probably going to see you become a mother, and your body will, change, and maybe you'll take some time to lose weight. It happened with me. I gained like 15, 20 kgs when Aaron was born. And Chris still found me hot, which was amazing. Like, it was so shocking to my inner system, because when I looked at the mirror, I didn't like what I saw, if I'm very honest, especially when Aaron was born and I was breastfeeding and I was tired and sleepless and my hair wasn't washed for 4 days. It was no fun. And still to have a man that still finds you hot, like, wow, like I must be doing something right here. And that was just, this ability to be imperfect, which is, understanding that we don't have to be supermodels. We don't have to have perfect body sizes. We don't have to be a particular age or anything like that in order for a man to like us and love us for who we are. In fact, I actually believe that it's my imperfections that are very endearing to my husband.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think for women, let's give them something tangible that they can, apply. Let him see that you're tired.
Mm-hmm.
Let him see that you're tired. Like, you don't have to come back from a work day, go on a day and try to act like you're 100% like, whoa, it's okay to say, I had a hard day at work. My boss made me cry.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's vulnerability. He's going to try and step in there. He's going to try and make you feel better. He's going to try and, fix the problem. But for that, you have to be open. You have to be willing to show where you're hurting or where you're imperfect or what struggle you had. So that's one element, Bob. What do you think about it?
So yeah, I love the courage to be imperfect. That's so I've got a therapist background, and I love citing sources. A guy named Alfred Adler talked about this years ago, and the beauty of it is that's what adds that second, third, fourth dimension. That's where intimacy occurs, because there's no intimacy without vulnerability, and that is that acceptance of this part. I do an example with women about, tell me how you treat your daughter or a niece or a little girl, and they're much more forgiving toward them. They're just, I don't have to tell them how to do it. They just know how. I mean, that if they were, as guarded with that little girl as they are themselves, it would just be weird. It would just be fragile. But the acceptance of it is the thing I like about it is maybe it's something you want to work on too. So if I talk too much, or when I get nervous, or I can work on that. But one of the things with men, from a vulnerability standpoint, it's not the thing that bothers men. It's the lack of awareness. So that if I talk loud every time I get upset and someone points it out and I say, no, I don't. See, it's the denial that's so scary. And that's where the masculine, the rigidity, can come in. But if it's, yes, I do that, I'm working on it, I'm always going to have some of this, it's okay if you point out at times. See, that's endearing. That's not a turnoff. That's because then it's okay. She sees it too. That's not scary, and it kind of doesn't matter what it is. I mean, physical, emotional, whatever the thing is, because when we own it, it's not that I just love this part about me. I mean, it may be that way, but it's you embrace it. It's you're gracious with yourself. You're gentle, but it also means you're authentic too. As you were talking about examples, what I think about is a man makes a suggestion over dinner or something, and someone would just say, I feel like I have to say yes, whatever. I go, no, you can say, that doesn't appeal to me. Maybe I'll try something else, or if he's suggesting, would you suggest something else? You can still put it back on him, but you don't have to say yes to something that you don't want to do, because that's going to build up resentment after a while. So the authentic part, when talking vulnerability, is, it's also got a gracious component to it. Because even with Sami, when you were talking, there's graciousness. It's kind. It's nice. It's something that you like it when it's done to you, but we have to do it for ourselves first. And that vulnerability, remember, that's the prize a man's after. When he takes you to dinner, when he goes out with you, the goal is to make you happy. But one of the things of making you happy is if you're happy all the time and you're always up and always energetic, that gets to be stale after a while. What makes the happy so exciting is that when he can see you have an off day, or you see something bothers you, then the happiness actually means something. So all the elements are critical, and that vulnerability actually makes the other stuff more valuable to him. He sees you as a whole person, and that whole person makes you safe. It makes you more appealing, because every man can tell a story about a woman that was, they'll say perfect, but it's just perfect makeup, perfect way of talking, but you can't touch her. You don't want to hug her. Because you might mess something up and there's a rigidity, and most of the time it's because she's scared. Most of the time she's nervous. It's why. But you don't want to pull her into you. It actually creates a certain distance. The vulnerability shows extreme confidence. A confident woman is one that's willing to be vulnerable. A confident woman is one that embraces all of who she is. So I love the examples you gave. That's a great way to describe it from a man's standpoint. Vulnerability is extremely sexy. It just is.
I think it's so powerful when you say authentic. Vulnerability is real and authentic. Mm-hmm. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, nobody is 100% all the time. Nobody's 100% happy all the time. Nobody's 100% looking like a model all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, I have a huge brand, and we cater to a lot of luxury events, and now we're doing this at the Ritz-Carlton. But I let my clients see me with a bad hair day. I let my clients see the human behind this, because I never want my clients to think that because Sami looks so amazing and Sami talks so well, that's why she has her man. Those are not the reasons why I have the love I have. In fact, it's my bad hair days. It's my very, human, normal, real stuff. That is what connected my husband to me. So it's really important that we do not try to date in this perfect way, that we always look perfect and always on the top, and we never share a hard moment. We never share a fear. For example, quick example so that you have more tangible things to use once you leave this webinar and come to our event, is number one, I remember when I was dating, I got out of a bar. I had met this guy for a drink. And then the street was completely empty and dark. And I honestly felt scared to just walk down and hail a taxi. So I turned to him and I said, this area doesn't feel really safe. Would you mind just, coming up with me to the taxi? He was like, of course, yes. How come I didn't think of it? Of course, yes. So that's a great example of, sharing a fear, inviting him in to, help you with something that you're struggling with. So another thing is, if you're struggling with something at work, let him know. He may have a solution. He may have an idea. And honestly, I think I do this all the time myself now. I'm so if I'm struggling, my husband knows. He knows, because that's a space where he can step in, and he loves to step in, right? I remember the other day I shared with Mr. Grant that I have so many men on my website, following my page. And without me even thinking, I just shared it with him. And you said to me, get your assistant to block these men. So I was like, wow, that idea didn't occur to me. And I think that is vulnerability in living. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Mm-hmm. If we are guarded, I would never let you know what I'm struggling with. I would never let you know that I have an issue or a challenge going on, right? But it's men's instincts, when we are vulnerable. And honestly, I live this every day with every person, because I believe in vulnerability. I believe that people need to, especially more leaders and relationship experts, I think we need to model imperfection, because otherwise women just put too much pressure on themselves to be perfect, and that is so unrealistic. So I think this vulnerability is just letting a man see through you when you're having a hard day, when you're, you have a fear, and not about him. Okay, this is important. Because sometimes vulnerability is understood as, I like him, maybe I should tell him my feelings, because vulnerability is about feelings. Yeah. So
I'm not laughing at anybody. I'm just laughing because I've heard that a lot.
Yeah. No. So that's not vulnerability. That's going to completely kill tension, and that's going to completely kill the mystery. So vulnerability I actually like to divide it in how I explain it, and maybe we can talk about it more at the event. There's low value vulnerability and there's high value vulnerability. Yeah. So low value vulnerability is more like, I meet you on a first date, I should be vulnerable. So I tell you about the childhood trauma I have. Yeah. And that's just completely not what high value vulnerability is. It's oversharing. It's too much too soon. So there's, of course, components of what vulnerability is. High value vulnerability is well paced, well timed, discloses over time. So, it's really important that, that's why we say you have to do the work more deeply. Because if you just take a message and run with it, there can be so many nuances to it. And I think that's what we want to do. We want to do the doing, and how do you really embody this in a way that it works is what we want to do with you ladies at the live event in Atlanta. So I think those are our four elements. We've definitely got them nailed down. The first one was pacing. The second one was space. The third one was Bob?
Tension.
And the fourth one was vulnerability. Yeah, those are, I would say, those are the key components of emotional attraction. And when you're learning this work at the beginning, it feels like, oh my God, I have to do all of this to get the guy. So I think it's important to remind you that, when it comes to vulnerability, when it comes to, creating tension, when it comes to leaning back, all of this is already inside of you if you put your heart first and, don't make a man the center of your universe. You stay the center of your own universe, then you will naturally create tension. You will naturally lean back. You will naturally create space, right? So this is not something that I think it's important for women to understand that, yes, okay, tension feels uncomfortable, tension feels new. But when it comes to lean back and when it comes to being in your feminine and when it comes to being vulnerable, these are all qualities that already exist inside of us. Right? And that we may be blocking because we've gotten into our masculine and we're conditioned to be in our masculine, right? So, don't approach this work from masculine space of perfection. Approach it from, I've already got this inside of me. I just need to bring this out. Yeah. So.
And that's actually what our event is about, is to give you a chance to experience this. So it's, folks can, we both sell products, and those are really a do-it-yourself type thing, which is for most people, that's okay. Yeah. But to actually have us help you do it and experience it, I know for me, once I experience something, then I can always figure it out. It becomes part of me. And that's what's so valuable about experiences. And I've had clients that have gone to some of your events, Sami. That's one of the things they talk about, was the experience of it. Yeah. And I get that with clients. But to do it in a short time span and to do it while it's fun, because another part is this is going to be a fun time. The details we've got going into this, it's just not just going to be teaching. It's not just going to be heavy. When I graduated school, I was done with school. So I don't want to do that with anybody. So it's going to be fun too, because when it's fun and light and also really impactful, those are the elements to me that just last for a lifetime. Those are the things that just, I never knew. And a lot of times we just didn't have people growing up that just knew how to tell us this. I think growing up folks told us what they knew how to tell us. But if they didn't know, they couldn't. So this is not blaming anyone. This is just, regardless of how we got here, let's just change it. And this is not about changing who you are. The irony is, and Sami, you can testify to this, is that when you do this, you become more of who you are. We're not making you into somebody else. It's you get enhanced. And you, the way you see yourself, the way others see you, and it becomes less effort. And that to me is what I call power. It's minimal effort, maximum result, not because you're trying harder. Goodness, I don't need anyone watching to try harder. If you're watching this, you try plenty hard. That's not it. It's if you join us, we want to show you and have you experience, this is what it can be like. That this is what it can be like going forward. And yes, and it can be, when Sami says easy, this is how it's easy. Now, it's a little, it won't feel familiar all the time. It'll feel like, this is different, but the willingness to try and experiment. And that's where we're giving you all these details now. But it is absolutely the experience part, what you're talking about, Sami, is Well, I can experience it one weekend. And the answer is you can. Yes, and that's my main reason for flying Sami in. It's just, I'm not just going to teach. Here's someone that lives it as well.
I think it's so important because I see a lot of women, they try to intellectually process this information, and you can't access real change and transformation by approaching this work from your head. You've got to be able to have those inner shifts energetically where you really, you relax into leaning back. You're no more afraid of losing a man because you're leaning back. You're no more afraid, does he think I'm not interested? You're not afraid anymore. And that happens when the energetic shifts happen. So I believe this event is so powerful because we're going to be there and we're going to make sure you feel. You feel the power of this work. You don't just understand it intellectually, I should be masculine or feminine. You really feel what it feels like. And that's why the surprise that Bob has created for all of you. Let's give you a little bit of a hint. Bob, can we give them a little bit of a hint?
Just a smidge of it. So I have a select group of men that will be joining us. And the goal of this is going to be for each one is that it's one thing for me to tell you, do this is how men think. I want you to hear this from the men themselves. I want you to hear this, and I want you to be able to feel it as well. So that when you have that feeling, that experience, you're going to be able to take that with you, on your flight home or on your drive home, and other circumstances, and you're going to have a thing of, oh, this is what he feels. It's going to be like this. This isn't it. But imagine you could look inside a man's diary. And in it, he says your name, Susan, Jennifer, Allison, Stephanie, Sami, like this. And I can't believe her eyes. I just can't take my eyes off her eyes. And he writes all these details. And you know that. When you see him, you know what he thinks about your eyes. It doesn't matter if he's frowning. It doesn't matter if he ignores you. It doesn't matter because you know what he's thinking. So this is going to be, so you have an element of that, of this is how men see me. Oh, and again, we're not saying it's for every man, and that's on purpose. You really don't want every man to see you this way. You don't want the guys that are a waste of time, that are mean and horrible. What we're doing here helps repel those men. So I don't want to make a false promise that every man will love me. That would be horrible on our part, even if we knew how to do that, if we did that. We want to get rid of the waste of time guys. And I'm not saying they're waste of time people. It's just they're not a good fit for you. And maybe they're just not ready for a relationship now. We want it to be with those men that are worthy, that we want men that want to audition for you. Remember, dating for women is about audition. You never audition. Sami, back me up on this, please.
Yes, oh, absolutely. They audition for us.
You never audition. Men audition for you. And we like auditioning. We like it a lot. We love impressing you. Look at my muscle. Look how strong I am. We like that kind of stuff.
I'll let you do it.
Women are all for it. And this is what we want, those men. And so so we want to give you an element of what that feels like, really as though you could read a man's diary and have an idea so that you start interpreting things with men through that knowledge, that experience versus just what you see. I find women sometimes get caught up in what they see and they forget what they know. And they see this, he's frowning. Oh, that must mean, no, I don't know what it means. He might have had something bad for breakfast. I don't even want to guess. But if you're in your feminine energy and you're situated there, then that is how you interpret things. And this experience is designed to enhance that that's your go-to place. When in doubt, you're in your feminine. You trust who you are, not what you see. Because what you see a lot of times is misleading. Men have bad days too. We have doubts as well. We have insecurities, and it's not always a reaction to you. A lot of times it's other stuff that gets in the way. And if a woman's unsettled or feeling uncomfortable, it's easy to misinterpret it. Oh, it's because of something I did. I've interviewed men and talked to them, and they're like, what? They have no idea what she's talking about, especially with husband and wives. He's like, that's not what I'm not upset. I was thinking about X. And she misinterprets. So that's what this experience is designed to do, this is the place. This is how they feel. If we know that, then we interpret everything through this experience.
That's so powerful. And that's the energetic shift. That no matter what's going on with the guy, you know where you stand, you know what you want, you know how this is going to roll out. Yeah. So, ladies, 25th, to 27th of October. We're looking forward to see you. Remember, this is going to be tailor-made for the participants. So we want to talk to you. We want to give you that plan to attract your man, strong, secure, dream guy, high value guy, however you want to call him. And we want to give you that plan. So when you leave the room from Ritz-Carlton on Sunday, 27th October, you know what you're doing, you know what you stand for, you know how to bring in that amazing man. And you know how to do that without doubt or self-questioning. This is where the energetic shift is so powerful. So it's not just another program. I really want to emphasize this is in person is so powerful. In person is where the real shifts happen. In person, you cannot go out unchanged from this event. We are that confident. You will go out a changed woman. And next 3 days is when you act and when you reserve your space, especially if you're looking for a great deal, because we're going to give you private attention, either Bob or I, and we are going to look at your case, and we're going to make sure that the content we roll out and the exercises and the experience we give you is most certainly speaking to your specific situation.
And we'll also, with this time, we're going to sort of kickstart it with you. So this is, Sami and I both have seen enough clients over the years that we don't need a lot to point you in the right direction. So this is not just, it is this, but also it's going to be, we're going to say, let's start with this, or we're going to get it started before the event. And that's the advantage for you, is that by the time the event happens, you'll already, be 2 or 3 steps into this. You'll already be experimenting. And you'll be able to give us feedback once the event happens. So, and this is as much as if you want to start early, that's what this is about too. And then we'll add that, of course, to the event as well.
And I'm so excited to be there in person. And I'm also going to take my ladies out for a spine massage, and we're going to give Bob a break and leave him behind. So really just, live the energy, embody the energy, not just know it through our heads, but live it, embody it. That's our goal. All right, everyone. Well, thank you, Bob, for doing this. I think the women are very aware of just how powerful this has been for so many of them. And if they apply this already, I think, they're going to make huge strides. Mm-hmm. And the link to the event is going to be on the top of this video. We would love to see you there. We know I have so many US clients who've been asking me for the longest time, when are you coming to the US? And so here's the opportunity. We really look forward to meeting you, supporting you in having that amazing man. And we want to remind you that the power is inside of you. So we're going to just bring it out. We're going to bring it out. Okay? All right, ladies. If you have any questions about the event, please reach out to us at support@samiwunder.com, or, reach out to Bob on hit reply to his email newsletter. I'm sure you're on it. And we're going to be there. Our team is going to be there to support you next 3 days to act. Okay? All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you so much, everyone. We look forward to seeing you in October.
Yes. See you at the Ritz-Carlton. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.